I recently got the chance to stay at the Inn at 500, located in the heart of downtown Boise. With complimentary drinks at check-in and spacious luxe penthouses and suites, it's an ideal spot for celebrations and your visitors. It was the perfect place for me and my husband to sneak away for a little staycation. We loved the cozy fireplace in our room and the balcony with gorgeous views of the city skyline, where we shared coffee in the morning. Ready to plan an unforgettable Boise stay? Book now at innat500.com. Boise Art Revel is bringing a fresh and exciting live design competition to the Hap Hap Lounge in downtown Boise on December 8th. You're invited to watch as local graphic designers engage in an electrifying showdown that will definitely leave a lasting impact on the creative community. Boise Art Revel is sure to be a one-of-a-kind occasion, and tickets are just $10 if you snag them early on Eventbrite. Search Boise Art Revel or click the link in our show notes to join in on this unforgettable creative experience. Today on CityCast Boise, our local outdoor spaces aren't just beautiful, they're therapeutic and the perfect antidote to stress. From meandering Greenbelt walkways to warm springs paths, join us as we explore these outdoor escapes that offer a chance to decompress and let nature work its magic. It's Wednesday, November 27th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Joining me today is Blake Hunter, our Hey Boise newsletter editor. Thanks for joining me today, Blake.
Hey, Lindsay, how's it going?
Pretty good. Well, I definitely am excited to jump into this because you've written about how much you enjoy a good walk. And I'm really curious, what is it about going on a walk that you love most?
Yeah, I think that, I think Boise is a beautiful place to go for walks. I think that there's so many options, as we'll talk about today. I think a lot of it, too, is that it's just the best way to kind of like regulate your own nervous system. When I was finishing up school and working 2 to 3 jobs through like the first 2 years of the pandemic, walking was like the number one way that I regulated my nervous system, because I was like, okay, I only have 10 minutes between meetings or between classes on Zoom in my apartment. I need to get out of the house. So yeah, I think that Boise is an amazing place for a lot of walks. And you can kind of find anything for anybody.
And in your perspective, what makes for a good walk, or maybe a good walk in nature?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Like if you want to have your headphones in and like listen to like music or a podcast or something, you need, a very predictable environment that's not, you're not going to be around too many people. So you're kind of like a hazard on the roadway. But at the same time, you're not like fully in nature. So I think that a lot of it is in Boise. To me, the only thing that you really have to have is some sort of greenery, which we have in spades here. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. No, Boise is fantastic about it. One thing, now I'm more in the suburbs. I don't necessarily have all of the beautiful Greenbelt access.
Yeah.
But it is kind of fun to watch the seasons change through my neighbors' yards. Mm-hmm. Even though it's not the Greenbelt. I won't pretend it's the Greenbelt. But it's just fun to watch the progression of the year and watch things change. And, I like the rhythm and the routine of it, but also just, it feels like there's a flow to it that I think is really relaxing and calming.
Yeah, it just reminds you, even if it's just like your neighbor's leaves turning colors or budding in the spring, like it's just a reminder to get out of our own little bubbles. Just a reminder that the entire world is out there. And so, yeah, I've had walks that I feel like have changed my life, where like I have epiphanies on them and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't need to be worried about this or whatever. So yeah, I totally feel you. It's like the little things.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's a lot of moving your body moves things in your brain, I think, or that's what I found.
It's all one organism.
Yes. Kind of bouncing off of that, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that there is a lot of stress out there. There's a lot of things to be stressed about. There's, rising rent and mortgage prices. We could constantly talk about that. People experience health scares all the time. There's politics, holidays with family, job stress. So many reasons why someone might need a chance to get outside, maybe get out of their heads, connect with nature. And I'll be honest, I used to think like the idea of, energy or clearing your head was kind of hokey. But making that time really does make a difference in how I feel. In these moments, where do you go to relax and regulate on a nature walk?
We're going to talk about the Greenbelt so many times. But my very favorite spot, and it's just the best park in Boise, in my opinion, and you can't convince me otherwise, is Kristen Armstrong Municipal Park,
Hmm.
in East Downtown, or kind of East End-ish. And there are just so many, like the path along there, I think is just one of the best stretches of the Greenbelt. And you can kind of go over to like the Warm Springs Golf Course if you want. And so there are just like, it segments itself really nicely in that part of the Greenbelt. And so you can really take, you know, if you go from like the MK Nature Center area in Kristen Armstrong, you could go just like to the end of the park, to where like the Greenbelt meets in that little Y, or you could go down that whole like tunnel, area where it feels like a tunnel of like the bushes and trees, and that's like a half mile there and back. But there are just so many little places along in there that are just like really special little alcoves. I've been going there for years, so it's a really special place for me.
It sounds like it has the potential to be very customizable for what you're looking for in that moment.
Yeah, no, it
And
totally is. Yeah.
and it sounds like something I really enjoy on walks is the little landmarks, certain
Yes.
houses, certain. So it sounds like there's some good, points to look for, things that you can anticipate that, feel familiar as you're out and walking.
Yeah, and one of my favorite, that stretch, there's like that long stretch as you're heading eastward on the Greenbelt on the north side of the river. There's that long stretch that's very straight, of the Greenbelt where it feels like that tunnel. And there are so many little spots right there that just like 10 feet and you're right next to the river and it feels like the Greenbelt is so far away. And so there are lots of, I mean, that's true of lots of different areas on the Greenbelt. And I think that that's one of my favorite things about it is that you can, just take like, be careful as you're getting off the Greenbelt and make sure that you're on like an actual like pathway where it seems like a lot of people have gone before. Like be careful and be smart about it. We don't want to ruin this like beautiful riparian ecosystem, but I think that that's one of the best parts is that suddenly within just like minutes you can feel like you're just on this river totally alone, just like having a moment to yourself or with other people too. But yeah, that's absolutely my favorite thing about the Greenbelt.
Are you ready to get into the holiday spirit? MartiniInTheMorning.com is a Boise-based internet radio station that's bringing you the timeless sounds of the great American songbook like Frank Sinatra and Louis Armstrong. For my family's favorite holiday traditions like driving around Boise, looking at the lights and sipping cocoa, I want a station that plays the same festive songs I remember from my own childhood. My new go-to station is Martini in the Morning. MartiniInTheMorning.com is owned by a family with deep Idaho roots and has been filling your days with the coolest, swinginest, and most romantic music. And this holiday season, they're turning up the cheer with their annual holiday music poll. You can customize your holiday soundtrack by voting for your favorite Christmas classics. Then tune in over Thanksgiving weekend as they count down the top 100 songs chosen by listeners like you. It's the perfect festive soundtrack you've been craving. Click the link in our description, enter the username and password provided to start streaming ad-free today.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Okay, Blake, let's say you're meeting up with more of an outdoorsy friend. What trail or path are you suggesting that you hit up?
Yeah, I think that going over to like the Old Penn area, kind of sticking to the same like East End downtown area, right there next to like the botanical gardens and stuff is like the Chief Eagle Eye Reserve, and I think that that's a really fun way. It gets you a similar view of the city to if you're all the way up on Table Rock, but it's a really fun area, and the trails are like a little network over there, and it's kind of rocky, so you feel you feel like you're doing more than you actually are, maybe. Like there's a little incline for like a quarter of a mile, and then you're up, and you don't really have to climb that much more if you don't want to. But it definitely feels like something that you can like go grab a coffee or something and go do that kind of walk.
And Boise is a dog city for sure. So where are you going to go with maybe a friend who's a dog owner to give their dog a chance to stretch their legs and the owners a chance to get a really good walk in?
You know, as anything with dogs, it really depends on how reactive they are with other dogs, with kids, anything like that. Um, but as we've talked about so many times, the Ann Morrison Parks, Treasure Valley Dog Island area is such a good area. But in the wintertime, the entire park is like an off-leash park, or kind of off and on throughout the season. And so that's a really good one that I would say, if the dog wants to like play fetch or whatever, you can kind of hang out there and like keep chatting and just kind of mosey around, and you just have a lot of space. So I think that that's a good one. Another couple really good options with dogs. And again, you got to be careful just getting out of the car if there's like a baseball game going on or something. But like the Willow
Yeah.
Lane park area is really good, as well as the Quinns Pond Veterans Memorial area is also a really good place for dogs, just depending on how busy it is again. Because there can be a lot of distractions, but it connects to the Greenbelt. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or whatever, you can just kind of take the trail and take off. But it's a good place to play with your dogs. And then, throughout the winter time, there are actually multiple parks like Ann Morrison that become off-leash dog parks during the winter, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's really handy for dog owners. And what are some of your suggestions for a family-friendly walk, especially for families with toddlers or young children who might be in and out of the strollers during the walk? Lots of remanaging during that walk.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that this is your own kid best, so so what you're kind of getting into. But going back to Kristen Armstrong area, I think that the MK Nature Center is a really fun one to bring kids to. Small side note, years ago when I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, we used to take kids there, and it was a bit chaotic, wrangling like 30 or 40 children. But if you only have like 3 or 4 or more or fewer or whatever, the MK Nature Center is a really fun area because it kind of feels like there is a lot that they could get into, but as long as you have a high adult to child ratio, or just like kind of keeping an eye on your kids, it's a really fun area, and there's a lot for them to do and like interact with at any time. And so I think that that's a really fun one because it's kind of partially what it's designed for. So I think that that's a really good one. And then there's a lot to explore in a pretty small space. And if you want, then you can head to the Greenbelt from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping them entertained during the walk is crucial.
Yes.
Crucial.
And maybe you can actually enjoy it a little bit too.
So if somebody's looking for a quick break during the workday, or maybe a shorter evening stroll, maybe before they make dinner, where do you suggest people go?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that for this, kind of leaning a little bit more into like getting into actual nature rather than just being on the Greenbelt. I mean, Camelback and Fort Boise, like the military reserve, are just like, they're so ridiculously accessible. And I mean, that is a huge part. Those two places and just the foothills in general are a huge part of why so many people live in Boise.
Absolutely.
They're so beloved, but truly, I mean, you just like go to Camel's Back and like take off up the 8th Street Trail, or like Hulls Gulch, or over to the military reserve. There are so many just even like a little walk up into those like drainages just feels very restorative. Like you can just go for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's a perfect little reset before you go home after work or whatever. And I think that it feels like you've done a whole thing. It feels like a great way to break up your day, even though you only spend 30 or 40 minutes doing it total.
And what about for the weekends? Or let's say you have a day off and you can set aside more time for a longer walk. Where do you go?
Me personally, and this is partially just because I'm so lucky to live downtown, but especially on my days off, I love a North End walk. one of the most like fun things about Boise is like the north end, the west end, the east end, like the homes there are just like so beautiful, and how big the trees are. I mean, like trees really make the biggest difference in any neighborhood for such a variety of reasons. But I love to just go on a north end walk. Like I think that you can go for miles and miles and really feel like you're seeing so much of the town. And it's, yeah, I really, truly, I love nothing more than like grabbing a friend, grabbing a coffee on like, especially lately, it's been like fall days. And if there's like a slightly warm morning, like bundle up, like coat and scarf kind of vibe with some coffee or like a sandwich or something and just like take off into the north end. I love it personally. Like that's my favorite. And that's true of really any neighborhood in Boise. I mean, obviously some are more walkable than others, but there's some really great, like walkable, fun, beautiful neighborhoods on the Bench, Winstead Park, like West Bench, all over. So I think that like we have so many cool paths and we have the Greenbelt and all of that, but don't forget like our neighborhoods, especially the most beautiful ones, are like some of our best places to walk for sure.
Absolutely. And we've talked about a variety of different walking options within Boise, but I'm really curious if you'll share, if you're not going to gatekeep it, what is your favorite walk? What is your go-to path or the area that you know if you walk there, it's absolutely going to recharge you every time?
For me, that's going to be the Bethine Church River Trail. Do you know where this is? Are you familiar?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. So you go, there's kind of a few different ways to get to it, but it's a gravel part of, it's connected to the Greenbelt. And so it's, you know, on the south side of the river from the Warm Springs Golf Course. So any way that you want to go to the Greenbelt from there. So like if you're familiar with like where the griddle is on Park Center.
Yeah.
If you park somewhere over in that area, and there are a few like Greenbelt parking spots too. If you head that way and keep going upriver, there's this whole section of the trail that's dedicated to Bethine Church, who is married to Frank Church. And she was a very, you know, powerful, influential figure in Boise in her own right. And there's this whole section of trail, I believe it's like over a mile long, that is dedicated to her. And it's part of this loop around like the Warm Springs Golf Course and on the south side of the Boise River that is like a 6.5 or 7 mile run, or a really long walk if you want to be out there for hours, that I love to take. It's like a great little run, but also just that section of the trail. Like I said, it's a gravel path. And so you get the river on one side and then there's some like marsh stuff on the other side. You're right in the center, like you're in one of like the centers of Boise, but it feels so like set aside. It feels so apart, and you can see Table Rock right up there. Yeah, Bethine Church River Trail. If you haven't checked it out, I think it's one of my favorites. Be smart because it is gravel. Like you can go off trail and stuff, but I think it's gorgeous.
That I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds wonderful. And kind of one of my favorite things about Boise is, just like getting on the Greenbelt, getting on some of these trails. You're in the city. You're not outside of the city, but you feel like you're in nature. It doesn't feel like you're in the center or the heart of the city.
Yeah, we're so lucky. And it's walkable in every season too. I mean, obviously not in the middle of terrible snowstorms, but all of these walks are pretty much available like year round, and they'll be a good way to recharge.
Blake, thank you so much for these suggestions and your insight and tips into trails and walking paths. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to our Hey Boise newsletter for even more great local tips. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another look at Boise's amazing composting program. Catch you then.